Welcome inside another live edition of Deep Look. It is Tuesday, May 14th. Joining me is Keith Rayner. Joining you is Charlie Eisenhood. And breaking news right off the top of the show. Keith, we have literally just received the seedings for the D1 college championships. So if you were listening to this live, text your teammates right now because we're about to drop these seeds live on the air. Let me just run them down real quick for you, Keith, and then we can discuss. We've also got a D3 college championships preview coming your way a little later in the show. But first up, the D1 seedings. We'll start in the women's division. Number one ranked UBC gets the number one seed over Vermont, despite the head-to-head loss. Vermont is the 2, Carleton the 3, and UNC the number 4 seed. So those are your pool 1 seeds. Then you've got Oregon, Stanford, Colorado, Tufts, rounding out the top 8. UCSB, Washington, Michigan, Victoria, UCSD, Western Washington, Penn, Santa Cruz, Colorado State, Georgia, Utah, and last but not least, SUNY Binghamton out of the Metro East. Over on the men's side, 3-time defending national champion UNC gets the number 1 overall seed. Number 2 is Georgia, 3 UMass, and then the number 1 ranked Colorado gets the 4 seed. So we talked a lot about them last week. Cal Poly SLO the 5, Pittsburgh the 6, Oregon and Brown round out the top 8. Then we've got Vermont, Minnesota, Carleton, Texas, Alabama Huntsville, NC State, Cal, Penn State, Oregon State, Washington University, Ottawa, and Michigan. Keith, there are your seeds. We're going to try to get the pools generated by those seedings up on the screen for everybody right now. Your immediate reactions, Keith.
Charlie, I can't believe you ever thought that the ultimate that USAU was going to make the North Carolina Pleiades anything but a 1 seed. This preposterous notion. It was never going to happen. They could have lost every game this season and been a 1. No, that's not true. But they were getting the 1 seed, and they bring it in. Just not that it, as we talked about last week, not that it really makes a significant difference between being the 4 and the 5. But there was no chance. And then of course Colorado, we didn't know exactly what they were going to do with them. They could have landed in like any spot from 1 to 6. So Mama Bird gets the 4 seed. They kind of split the difference there, and I think I felt pretty strongly they were probably going to put them in the 4 or the 5 because, like we said, those are not super different, so you get a little leeway there. So the top 8's kind of played out the way we thought, but there was definitely a chance that there was some real movement.
Yeah, interesting to see. They kept Cal Poly. Like the ordering of Pitt, Colorado, and Cal Poly was interesting because Pitt had the head-to-head win, but they ended up going with Colorado at the 4, SLO at the 5, and Pitt at the 6. So it was always going to be a tricky thing to figure out, and ultimately Pitt kind of gets the worst of it. They're going to be, I think, a very tough 2 seed in that pool. UMass should not feel comfortable with them, although that UMass has been better in the matchup for sure so far this season. I'm pretty surprised that they kept UBC as the 1 seed in the women's division. Like it's quite unusual to have a head-to-head result like that sort of get ignored. I know UBC was, I think, pretty clearly the best team this year, but usually you would see clear 1-0 result like that go in favor of the team that won that head to head.
Especially when you have a team that like otherwise meets all the marks, like you do in Vermont. Yeah, a little bit surprising, but also kind of aligns with what we thought, so it doesn't feel that weird. Can we also note that Ottawa and SUNY Binghamton, Metro East, bringing up the last place 20th. What was that? One of the Metro East teams is not seated last. in the men's division. You're. Can we check this? Do we need to send this back up? Was there a typo?
We just saw the women's pools, but our fantastic producer Lindsay Sue just popped up the men's pools. I guess there's no way for us to drop these me and Keith out of the way there, but that's Michigan behind Keith, and that's Oregon State behind me. Those are your pools. Let's just stay here in the men's division for a second. Obviously, Keith, we have a whole show next week to talk about it, and beautiful. Thank you, Sue. A good look at the full view of it there. Any initial inclinations on Pool of Death?
Ooh. Well, I mean, my first thought in the men's division is wherever UAH is the 4 seed. But it's pretty rare to feel that way about Pool A. But maybe that is, in an unusual twist, the Pool of Death in the men's division. Brown, New England champs. They're a tough 2 seed. We know they have plenty of familiarity with UNC over the years. You got UAH at the 4 seed. They're going to be a tough out. And Texas has, over the years, shown a ability to show up to nationals, be a real thorn of elite team sides. And even Oregon State, I mean, obviously they're the highest ranked of the teams on the 5 line. But I think that they've shown some chops too. They're a little more volatile than some of the teams seated above them, but they were, I think, the scariest of the seeds on that line too. So I think it actually might be Pool A, which is a highly unusual place to be.
I think I might look to Pool C, actually. Not only do you have a 5 seed in Ottawa that maybe is the quality of a 4 or even possibly a 3 seed, but you have regional, well, I shouldn't say regional champs in the top 3 spots, because UMass did in fact lose to Brown. But I think we can all agree that at full strength, UMass is the best team out of New England. And then you've got the OV champs in Pittsburgh and the North Central champs in Minnesota. And I don't know, this Minnesota team hasn't really felt like a semifinals contender, but they definitely have a lot of talent, Keith. And Cal is no joke. Their zone could give any of these teams problems. I just feel like there's quality top to bottom in this pool.
Maybe I'm a little more skeptical of Cal, and I've been noted as in our office, someone as I've noted myself as the Ottawa hater. Not that I don't think they're good. I just think everybody's gotten a little too excited about them. So yeah, to me, this pool definitely strong. I mean, all these pools are strong, but this one feels a little more top heavy to me. And I need to see more from Minnesota in order to start being confident about Pool C's ability to really get mixed up.
SLO's got to love their pool. They got to absolutely love their pool. I mean, they get I don't know if Penn State this is their first time at nationals, but it's their first time in a long time. A not particularly good Michigan team, a Vermont team that barely made nationals, and a Colorado team that's overseeded. SLO is the favorite heading into that pool, and it's the first time in 21 years for Penn State. And look, Penn State, they're going to be like, hey, we're going to go out here and try to get into pre-quarters, and I think they should, but SLO's got to be licking their chops. Pretty much an ideal spot for them, dodging UNC, Georgia, and UMass and Pitt in pool play. Let's look at the women's side and talk about the pools over in the women's division. So there you go. UBC number 1, Vermont number 2. Keith, where's your pool of death here?
I think it's got to be Pool D, right? I mean,
I think easy call.
4-5-9 is good. I think SUNY Binghamton could be the best of the 5 seeds. At least they're as scary as any of the other ones. Maybe Colorado State's the best. Maybe Georgia. I think you could go a lot of different directions there. But
even Utah,
they're not going to be a pushover at the 5 spot. And Santa Cruz obviously is going to be strong too. I mean, I think that they're more or less equal with a lot of the 4 lines. So you get some of the strongest teams at the top, and then you get pretty solid competition down the line. I think it's very, very clearly Pool D.
And what I like about it is that usually you come into this tournament and you're like, okay, UNC is going to mop. But there's no guarantee that UNC wins this pool. Not this year. Oregon's legit. I mean, I definitely think UNC is the clear favorite, but it is not. It's a little tougher to be the 4 seed versus usually coming in as the 1 seed. Meanwhile, UBC is going to be like, all right, let's just crush these teams in Pool A and move on. UBC UNC semifinal. Are we already seeing it? It's going to be a fun game, Keith.
I mean, there are a lot of ways that we could create different futures and timelines for what semifinals are going to look like. But quarterfinals already. It looks like it could be pretty hyped. So,
all right. Well, much more to come on D1 on next week's preview show. Let's move now to our. Well, before I say this, make sure you give us a like, give us a subscribe here on the YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us live. It's time for our trivia question of the week.
All right, our trivia question of the week. Obviously, we got to be D3 themed. It's D3 Nationals lead up week. And Charlie, pretty straightforward one here. I want to talk about the teams with the longest active qualifying streaks in Division 3 in the men's and women's divisions, respectively. Think you can name who's got the longest active qualifying streaks? There's one team in the men's division, and then there are 4 teams tied in the women's division.
Have any of them done it every single year since D3 Nationals was started back in what, 2012? Maybe earlier. 2010?
I think it was 2010 was the first one, and no, they're a team that has qualified every year.
Okay. Well, you tell us about Sunset Leaks, and I'll think about it.
All right. While Charlie thinks about it, and the folks in the chat think about it, we'll talk about our friends over at Sunset Lake CBD. Now, they're originally a dairy farm that produced milk and cream for Ben and Jerry's, and then they started growing hemp in 2019. They focus on providing high-quality products at a fair price. They're majority employee-owned. They use sustainable farming practices, and they cut out the middleman to help make their products a little more affordable for their customers. Now, Charlie, you and I know it is a busy time in the Ultra World offices, and my life is wildly busy too. You got D3 Nationals this weekend. D1's on the horizon, and there's a lot of work that goes into that. It's the end of Connecticut high school season. Tomorrow's the state finals, so my role in the local Discord has been active. I got a bunch of family stuff this month. Like everybody in my family's whole birthdays is this month, so I cannot afford to be wasteful with my precious time. That means that I'm leaning on my Sunset Lake Focus gummies during my workday, and then in the evenings I gotta chill out because it's stressful. So I'm taking the Vibe gummies or the Relax gummies to help me chill, get a little calm, so I can maximize my rest time too. That's gonna get me through a hard couple weeks, but I'm gonna make it out on the other end. Now you can get some of these great products like the Focus gummies, the Vibe gummies, the Relax gummies. You can do all that at Sunset Lake CBD. You can use our promo Deep Look. That's one word, Deep Look. You'll get 20% off your order, and you'll let them know that we sent you their way. That's Sunset Lake CBD, farmer-owned, Vermont-grown Sunset Lakes. All right, our trivia question of the week: the most active qualifying streaks in Division 3. Let's see if there's anybody in the chat with the answers. Not yet. Charlie, you got any guesses for us?
I haven't looked at the chat. I haven't looked at anything. My first guess is Middlebury men's.
Ding ding. We're winner chicken dinner. Middlebury does lead the men's division with a streak of 6 straight qualifications.
Women's division, I'm gonna go Carleton Eclipse. There's 4 teams, right?
That's correct. 5. Yep, there are 4 teams, and it's a 5 qualification streak that Carleton has.
Okay. So let's see. Middlebury.
Correct again. Middlebury on both sides.
St. Olaf. That's probably wrong.
Yeah, they're at 3. They missed in 2021.
Oberlin?
Not Oberlin. They didn't qualify this year either. But I don't think they qualified last year.
I should have known
that.
Yeah,
they have. I know they won that championship, and it sticks out in the mind because it was such a big deal.
Exactly. I'm thinking about teams that have won. Let's see. Who else has been really good? Williams.
Williams is a good guess, but they missed this year.
Oh, damn
Uh,
it. All right.
so you're missing
I
one of the.
should definitely have known the ones that have
You're missing a
got in
team
and
that's
didn't
been a
get in
big
this year.
time team for the past few years, and that's Portland.
Yes.
Portland, who I assume is going to be the number one seed, or is the number one seed this year. We know the seeds, and then the other one, a bit of a surprise because they're more on the fringes. Occidental out of the Southwest, 5 straight seasons. Often you recall in the Southwest, it was the team that was higher ranked between them and Claremont, and they've been the top ranked. Although this year they had to play for
There you
it
go.
in a 3-game series. That was pretty dramatic, but they did qualify. So 5 straight years for Occidental. So those are your leading qualifying streaks in Division 3.
Great stuff. All right. Time to get into talking about this D3 National Championships that's coming up this weekend. It starts Saturday, runs through Monday. We just dropped the broadcast schedule on socials, so you can check that out. We are super excited to be streaming 25 games this year, and so most coverage ever. Why don't we start in the women's division? You mentioned Portland, number 1 seed. Your other top seeds: Union out of Tennessee, McAllister, who's had a heck of a year, the Purse Snatchers out of St. Paul, and then St. Olaf coming in as the 4 seed. Haverford, Bryn Mawr the 5, Colorado College the 6, Eclipse, and then Wesleyan to round out your top 8. So, Keith, why don't we start with just like looking at these pools? Do you feel like you're seeing clear favorites in these pools, or does it feel a little bit more open this year? I mean, last year's national champion Middlebury, the 10 seed.
Well, after regionals, there's a lot of question marks. There are 2 teams about which I don't think there are a lot of question marks, and that's Portland and St. Olaf. They've been consistent throughout the year. I think Portland's going to be the favorite coming into the tournament, but the rest of the field is a mishmash because of what we see at regionals and because of the way the seeding lines up. You got Carleton seated behind a team like Union, who we don't have a lot of D3 comparatives for. And then you got Middlebury, who's this powerhouse team, 3 straight national titles. Way down to the 10 seed. They're the 3rd seed in their pool with a team that nobody was talking about before the year. McAllister seated at the top of their pool, who comes out and performs well at regionals. So Pool C has to draw your attention. I mean, it is a very compelling group of teams. I have no idea what to expect. I think there is a non-zero chance that Davenport wins this pool in their first trip to nationals. I think that the version of Davenport we're going to see at nationals could be the best version we've seen. I've heard that they haven't even really been able to play a tournament really with their full group. So they're going to have the full roster, but they're going to have to contend with Middlebury, a really strong Colorado College team that certainly is semifinals quality, and a McAllister team that kind of flew in out of nowhere and won one of the toughest regions in the entire division. So Pool C is hyper dramatic, but I think that kind of thing you can find all around these women's division pools, maybe with the exception of Pool A. I think Pool A feels like the most likely to go to chalk, but look, Mount Holyoke made a run at regionals that I think was a little bit surprising. Grinnell makes out of a tough North Central, so it's even hard to call a pool that has a team for New England and the North Central, the 2 strongest regions. It's tough to say that pool feels like it's like an obvious outcome. So this is I don't know that the title necessarily is wide open in Division 3, but basically everything else feels up for grabs.
Yeah, I mean, where do you go with your title contenders list right now? I think how deep is that pool? I mean, you look at these North Central teams; they're all getting really good seeds. Are they as strong as they appear in the rankings? What do people believe in this Union team? I mean, they've obviously had a very good season. They totally dominated in the Southeast, but they're also potentially a little bit untested. Although they did play well against a lot of D1 competition. So, where does that team fit into the conversation?
They're hard to really square away, right? Like it's hard to figure out exactly what this team, which I believe was for a little while looked like they had a shot at maybe a number 1 seed. And yeah, they have a win over an Alabama Huntsville in D1, the team that reached the Southeast final in the women's division. So they haven't played a lot of D3 teams, basically just Barry and Georgia College. So the teams in their region. So there's very little data about how good this team could be. And that's despite the fact that they played 15, 20 games over the course of the year. I really don't know. I mean, I can't write them off though, based on what we've seen during the season. And it makes it really hard to figure out exactly where that title list is. I mean, I put Portland and Olaf on it and then a lot of question marks. I think I would probably go as deep as I probably would say the top 7 seeds and then maybe Middlebury. I want to believe in Wellesley based on what we've seen over the past few years, but they haven't really put together the most impressive resume this season. Haverford and Bryn Mawr, I don't know exactly what I think of the Sneetches this year, but I do think that I'm definitely not going to write off Carleton. There's no chance I'm selling on Rowan Dong quite yet. But yeah, those top 4 seeds, then Carleton, Colorado College, I definitely feel like they can contend. There's just, you can't really write anything in stone here aside that I expect Portland to be good.
I mean, you look at the D3 rankings. I mean, Union is the top team. They're number 33 in the overall USAU rankings. I just don't know I don't know whether to believe it or not. I mean, they split wins with Alabama Huntsville, who's a pretty darn good D1 team. So it's kind of hard to map where this team should be because a lot of their other games came against teams that are way down the rankings. But they could just sneaky win the whole thing. I think it's possible. But they're certainly going to have their work cut out for them playing a storied team in Carleton in their pool. I'm selling on Middlebury. I know that they have all the history, but I think it's just too hard to overcome the losses that they took on the roster this season. For me, Portland looks like the heavy favorite. And I think that there's a semi spot open potentially in that McAllister slot. How good is the North Central? A lot of it comes down to how good you feel the North Central is, because you see them at the 3, 4, and 7 seeds. If they're as good as we think, those teams could all be in semis, or the whole group of them could deserve to be kind of faded a little bit. Olaf is the number 2 ranked team in D3 right now behind Union. And they have some really nice wins. They have kind of it's surprised that they didn't win the region, frankly.
It definitely is. I mean, they were part of a slate of regional surprises. I mean, Union's got the short roster. They do have Torrey Green, and you mentioned Middlebury. They still have Kezia Wilde. I wonder if we're going to see some of these teams that we've seen be really deep before kind of focus more on their top end players. It's hard for me to write off a Middlebury team that has a player who I think could be the best player in the country in the division. So this is going to be tricky. I mean, I feel like I'm throwing darts as I try and make picks here.
All right, well, let's make those picks right now. Who are you taking to semis, Keith? And you can go ahead and make your whole slate of picks all the way to the winner.
All right. Well, I'm definitely, I think we've both well established that we are big believers in Portland. So I'll definitely take them to reach semis out of Pool A. Let's see. I think I also believe in Carleton and Pool B. I know McAllister was regionals, but the experience of being a nationals and the type of players that are on that Eclipse roster, I'm going to take them to win Pool B and make it to semifinals. Over Union, McAllister, Colorado College, Middlebury. It's so hard. What do I do with Pool C? I'm going to take Colorado College to win Pool C and make it to semis as well. But their Pool C teams, they end up, one plays Portland and then the other plays I'm going to say Olaf, who wins Pool D. So that would be Olaf against Middlebury or McAllister. Oh my God, I have to eliminate one of these teams. It's so hard. I'm gonna say Olaf versus Middlebury, and I'm gonna take Middlebury. I'm taking Middlebury to shove off the regular season and make it back. So I have Portland. Portland against Middlebury, and Olaf versus Colorado College. Give me Colorado College upset and in Portland, and I'll take Portland to take the whole thing down.
All right, here we go with my semis picks. I am going to take Portland to win Pool A, comfortably win their quarterfinal. In Pool B, I am taking Union. I think the skeptics will be proven wrong, at least initially. I'm going to take Union to make it through to that semi spot. I've got Colorado College being the top team in Pool C and going all the way through to the semifinals. And boy, I really want to pick Wellesley. I'm not going to lie to you. But I'm going to take Olaf. I think Olaf, disappointing end of regionals, but they are the best team in the North Central. They will show that this weekend. That means that I have Portland, Olaf in semis, and I have Union, Colorado College. I'm going to take Union and Portland. Ultimately, I think the top two seeds are going to do it. I mean, I really like what I see from Union's resume, even though I do think it is possible that it is a little bit of smoke and mirrors. Portland, though, for me, heavy favorites. Heavy favorites. I mean, they have been very good this season. Their losses have mostly come to Whitman, who they eventually beat at Northwest Conferences. And that, of course, Gemma Monk out with the injury. Their other loss came to Cal Poly SLO, the number 30 ranked team in the country in D1. So super strong team. They won D3 Grand Prix. I just think that they're battle tested. They've been here before at the top level of D3 Nationals, and this is the year that they're going to take it down.
Yeah, great continuity for them. Definitely experience. So I'm in the same camp.
All right, let's go over to the men's division and take a look at these men's pools. These are a doozy as well. Middlebury, number 1 seed, Oklahoma Christian, coming off the title a couple years ago. Olaf, led by Will Brandt, at the top of Pool C. And then you've got Whitman, the top team out of the Northwest, leading Pool D. Keith, these are awesome pools, balanced, dangerous. You've got make it 4 winners of their regions together in Pool B. I love it. What do you see here as your pool of death?
I think that is a tough question. To me, it's Pool A or Pool B. I think I'm going to take Pool B Pool A as the pool of death. I was real high on Lewis and Clark last year. I still think they will be good this year. I think Davenport is also going to be strong, and Oberlin's a scary 4 seed, the scariest one in my mind. So I think altogether that makes them a pretty tough pool. Although I can see the case for B with OC and Richmond at the top, and then Colin Hill at Barry as a pretty scary, powerful 3 seed. But I think I'm going to take Pool A as the pool of death here. There's also a case for Pool D.
I think I take D, but that's just a classic 4-5-9. It's always going to look a little harrowing. I think, Chop, always a strong team. And then, you've got the Williams finishes second behind the juggernaut that is Middlebury, the heavy favorite to win this whole thing. But they are not going to be a pushover. I mean, they could definitely win that pool. Obviously you got the 16 seed in there as well, so that maybe takes the shine off of it a little bit, but I really like the strength of those top 3 teams in that pool. There's a lot of kind of interesting matchups. I mean, one of the things about D3 that is compelling is that a lot of these teams haven't played each other at any point during the season, and often they haven't even seen each other within the past couple of years or maybe ever. So you get these kind of like difficult to prognosticate matchups between strong teams from around the country that maybe haven't played each other. So I love the matchups at the top of Pool B. I already mentioned the top of Pool D. You know, Franciscan versus Bates. I love it, right? I don't know what's going to happen in that game.
Yeah, I mean, Franciscan is kind of shaken up, I guess, by how regionals went. So I don't know. I think they've been up and down over the course of this year. They have won a lot of games. They haven't lost a lot of games, but they have that loss to Separatists. They lose to Messiah at regionals. And they played a bunch of super close games at D3 tune-up. Some of them against teams that didn't qualify. So I think that they had kind of mixed results as far as their actual on-field performance. And I wonder, what does that mean for this team? They also have a win over Richmond. They crushed Barry, them at FCS D3 tune-up. They've beaten the teams that beat them. I don't know exactly what to make of Franciscan at all. So I think that they're a tough one to pick, but I think that's fairly emblematic of what we see. It's a little cleaner than I think it is in the women's division, but not that much cleaner. I think at the top, yes. Like I think Middlebury and OC and Olaf and Whitman and Williams have really established themselves in that kind of pecking order at the top. And then you have your challengers. You have your Richmond. I think people are hyped on Oberlin after regionals. Chop as a team, nobody's ever going to count out. Missouri S&T gets out of that really difficult South Central. I think that there's like these challengers throughout the grouping, and maybe you staple Richmond on as a title contender, but I really think you're a little more cleaner cut at the top of the order here. So a little less drama potentially, but it's D3. The upsets are coming. Don't worry.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and make my picks right now. Top 3 seeds, all going straight to semis. These teams are a cut above. Middlebury has been fantastic this year. Oklahoma Christian is set for the bounce back after a really disappointing 2023. And Olaf, I don't think they're going to have the depth of a Middlebury, but the top end is tremendous. Will Brandt's the best player in the country in D3. He's a borderline top player if he's playing D1. I mean, that's how good he is. Then the question is, who's that last team in? I think I'm going to take Williams. Iron sharpens iron. I think Williams, having been tested by Middlebury and the other strong teams in the East Coast, is going to outshine Whitman playing in a relatively less strong Northwest area. I think they win that pool and they advance. I love some upset potential, though, in quarters. I could see a team like Barry getting into quarters, maybe giving somebody a scare. Richmond is a team I like as well. But ultimately, I'm going to go Middlebury, OC, St. Olaf, and Williams. That means I got Middlebury versus Williams. We already know what's going to happen there. Middlebury's taking that game. And Olaf, Oklahoma Christian. What a matchup that could be. I'm going to take Olaf. I think Brandt will do just enough. Unfortunately, he's going to run out of steam in the finals. You can't carry a team all by yourself. Middlebury is the best team in the country, and they're going to take home another title.
Interesting here. Okay. So for my picks, I think let me say that I think I got some spice there. So I'm going to take OC. They're actually the team I think I feel the most confident about after what I saw from them earlier in the year. Certainly they have talent on their roster. So I'm going to take OC to make it to semis out of Pool B. I'm going to take St. Olaf out of Pool C. I'm with you, man. That Pool D situation is tough to pick from. But while I think about that, I'm going to take Middlebury to make it out of Pool A. But I'm going to take Richmond to upset Middlebury in quarters. It's time to sprinkle some D3 spice on this. I
love it.
This delicious dish. They're not. I don't get the sense that this is the invincible Middlebury that we've seen in other years. They've played they played close with Bates. They dropped a game earlier this year as well to who is it that they lost
to Williams.
To Williams. You know that their results aren't
they
quite
beat them
as
by
sterling.
6 at regionals.
Yes,
They beat them by 6
they
at
did.
regionals.
They did. I'm just saying, they barely lost to Texas. Like, I know Middlebury's good. I'm not saying they're not good. I'm just saying that they're not untouchable. So
This is going to age poorly.
I am okay. All right. Well, maybe it's my next Sixers over Riot. You don't know. So I'm taking Richmond to get the upset. And then Pool D is tough. The winner of Pool D has to play against 2C and 3B. I don't know. I don't know if I see it there. So I think I'm with you. I'm gonna go with DK and Williams here to make it out of Pool D as both the pool winner and advance in the semifinals. So that gives me Williams and Richmond, and then OC and Olaf. Man, the two teams I want in the finals have to play each other in semis, in OC and Olaf. I think I'm really tempted to go with Olaf and just ride the Will Brandt hype. I mean, he's very, very good. Usually OC brings the deeper team, and with Ryan Louis Ying and Kamari and Sammy Roberts, like, I still think they will be that group, but maybe not quite enough to overcome Olaf. So I'm taking Olaf to the final. Richmond's magic runs out. I've got Olaf and Williams in the final. And I'm unlike you, I'm taking Olaf to finish it off. Will Brandt claims his prize.
Wow. I just heard a spicy rumor. You ready for it? This is completely unconfirmed. Will Brandt, Minnesota, 5th year.
Whoa.
That's the little rumor. Wouldn't that be something?
That would be hype. That's the kind of fifth year staying around, 5th, 6th year I could support. I can get behind that.
All right. Streaming schedule. Broadcast begin 8:30 a.m. Central Time on Saturday. We will have 3 games streaming per round. We will have all 4 semifinals for you, as well as both of the finals, of course. Here's a take a look at the Saturday schedule if you're watching on YouTube. Our showcase games on day 1, McAllister taking on Middlebury in the women's division. A great way to kick off the tournament. I mean, that is a true tester game right off the bat. 10:45, the showcase game is St. Olaf versus Wellesley. Then men's games in the afternoon at 1 and 3:15. First up, Whitman and Williams. That game will be free on our YouTube channel. And then Oklahoma Christian taking on Richmond at the top of that pool, as perhaps they're playing for the number 1 seed going into the bracket. Okay. Then you've got our all access games. This is for these are non-commentated games. We've got I'm not going to read them all off, but another 8 games for you on day 1, additional pre-quarters and quarters. Those will be available to all access subscribers and those who get the D3 College Championships event pack. Showcase games will be available to those folks as well, along with standard subscribers. You can find out more info over on ultiworld.com and follow along with everything at ultiworld.com/live. Keith, what are you most excited for on day 1?
Oh my gosh, this showcase slate is absolute fire. I want to say Whitman and Williams in the men's division, but honestly, I think it's McAllister and Middlebury. These are 2 teams that it's like,
that's hype.
What are they gonna bring to the table? Is this McAllister team for real? Is Middlebury's fall off for real? Like, something's gonna be right, somebody's gonna be wrong. What a way to set the tone for the rest of the weekend.
I love it. So again, get yourself a subscription if you don't have one yet. Back-to-back college championships weekends to take in 25 games, a new record high for coverage from D3 and D1 info to come. We haven't even picked the schedule yet because we literally just got the seeds. So stand by for that. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we're talking TEP. National teams playing. Big upset. Lots to discuss. Stay with us.
Hey, this is Robin Fennig. One of the only things that we have to bring to an ultimate tournament are our cleats. And every player has a cleat story, right? Mine took place in 2022 when Noyes slayed our regional rival Dragon Thrust on Universe Point in a rainy semifinal at the USA Ultimate Club Championships. In my toe case, I didn't have to change a single thing about how I cut to get open for resets. I was so lost in the moment that I didn't even know it was Universe Point when I threw the game-winning huck to Dylan DeClerc. Toke cleats are specifically designed for Ultimate, with a cleat pattern for the game's sharp cuts and a durable, breathable, supportive build to keep your feet and ankles protected and comfortable for longer. That's why I've been using them for over 6 years. They're my best ally in the field. You put your best self on the field, so make sure you're bringing the best with you at tokeultimate.com. That's TOKAY-ultimate.com. Toke, sky the limits.
Heads up, Breakmark now has sublimated 5-panel hat. You can get the hat and their famous reversible free with the purchase of one of their 3-piece team bundles, starting at just $85. Get all the details at breakmark.com.
Alrighty, welcome back to Deep Look. We continue live on YouTube as we are live here every single week, Tuesday, noon Eastern time. And it's time to talk TEP. Let's get right to it. Colombia versus USA. Both of the national teams getting some early reps in before this year's World Championships that are coming up at the end of August, start of September in Australia. And it's the first World Championships in 8 years. Colombia comes back to defeat the U.S. 13-12 on Universe Point. Keith, the Cardenas twins were on fire. The backbone of this Colombian roster that we've seen getting better and better continues to impress, and they get the epic comeback to beat the U.S. Does this make them title favorites going into Worlds in a couple of months?
No, to me it does not, but it makes them real contenders. As somebody, I want to say it was Ravi who pointed out in our Discord, which if you're a subscriber and you're not a part of, you should definitely check it out. This is a classic. You beat the U.S. too early. You got to save it for when it counts the most. I think that it's not that strange for the U.S. team to not be clicking that much. I think that there's a lot more chemistry to be had on the Colombian roster. That team, I think, is going to have a much better feel for itself coming out in these games than the U.S. teams, which are very much still figuring things out. As we take a look at the footage itself of the dramatic Universe Point, people had turned this game off, folks. People were wrapped it up. U.S. was done, had the win. But
Kaboom.
Incredible layout block, which just feels like another day at the office for Vale. I mean,
that's so nasty.
And then
Valeria is unbelievable, dude.
Out.
Remember a couple years ago when I said Valeria was the best thrower on the planet and people were clowning on me? Now I feel like she's legitimately getting to become considered the best player in the world, as she just absolutely annihilates that cut from Abby Hecko.
I mean, don't take me saying that I don't think they're the favorite to mean I think that they can't beat the U.S. at the real competition. I mean, they may have 4 or 5 of the best 50 players in the world on their team, and multiple of the top 20 players in the world on their team. This is a very real threat to the U.S.'s ability to win gold. So don't take that. Just because I think they're not the odds-on favorite does not mean I think they're not capable of taking up a gold medal, because that's what they are. But I do think this is going to be a nice wake-up call for the U.S. Hey, we are, just because we are the favorites does not mean we can coast through this. So I still think you got to make the U.S. the betting favorite and who I would pick going in, but this is not going to be easy, and the Colombians are a scary team and have to be the top challenger to the U.S. for sure at this point.
No doubt. I mean, if you were betting on finals matchups, USA Colombia would be the heavy favorite to be the teams that we see in that final. I do think you're right, ultimately, that the U.S. still has to be considered the favorite. This is a warm-up tournament. They're working on rotations. The Colombians have had years, literal years of playing together with their top players. They play club, international. I mean, they were in the PUL for a while. Like, they know how to play with one another. And sure,
And
they're adding a
playing
couple
at home.
pieces.
They're literally playing in
They're
their
all
home
playing at
tournament.
home. Meanwhile, the U.S. team is playing their first reps together as a team. They're still figuring out who's doing what. And they have a lot of stuff to work on, as is to be expected. The problem is we see these results the same way we saw the World Games Colombian roster beat the U.S. the same a few years ago. The same way we saw the German team beat the U.S. at World Games in 2022. The U.S. team struggles earlier on and then figures it out, locks in, turns up the defense, and smothers teams. And that still has to be the baseline expectation of what will happen in this case. But I will say, it certainly makes it a lot more interesting that Colombia was able to make a comeback, that they were able to get the huge plays on their side, and they look like they had the best players on the field. And at the end of the day, if you have the best players on the field in a world final, you got a good chance to win. I don't care how deep or not deep your team is.
And to be clear about for all the benefits of the wake up call, light a fire under the U.S., all that kind of stuff, a chance for them to coalesce. Like, Colombia is going to be better for this result. Like, they will be confident. They'll know we can come back against this U.S. team. Obviously the top level players on the team already knew we could hang, but there's some young up and comers I'm hearing about on the Colombian roster. So they've got time to continue to gel. And I think that part of the process with the U.S. is that the first day of their international competition that they play in, actually at WC is still going to be part of their buildup. Like, they are so confident that they're going to be in the bracket deep in play. They know that they don't really have to coalesce until the last moments of the tournament. And I don't know how long they're going to, I don't even know what to say, it will be like able to survive that way. But there's a lot less buildup for the U.S. than there are for most of the other countries. The nature of the country, it's very scattered. It's hard to get everybody together. So they just don't get that many reps together. So I think it's not weird for you to see these kind of flubs from the U.S. early on. They're going to come close together. As is pointed out in the chat by Willoway, the U.S. was running open lines. They made a couple of mistakes. But the Colombian team is probably going to be running tighter lines. And potentially, will that lead to fatigue? We don't know. We've certainly seen them run tight lines and have a ton of success over the run of this group of players. So, yeah, I mean, again, Colombia are a real threat, but U.S. still the favorite.
The U.S. and Canadian national teams met in the mixed final. U.S. wins comfortably. It was a very sloppy game. The U.S. took a big lead early. Their deep defense really gave Canada trouble. And then the U.S. let Canada back into the game. Canada ended up taking half, and then it was all U.S. in the second half, and they pulled away to a comfortable victory. Obviously, the talent level of this mixed roster for the U.S. is just going to demolish other teams' rosters. Is there hope for another team to upset this U.S. team? By the way, 8 years ago, the U.S. mixed team won like 15-3 in the final. I mean, it wasn't even a contest. It was a complete beatdown. I think it was Australia that they defeated in that game.
There is faint hope, and basically you just need to go back and rewatch Canada's first half comeback to give you that hope. As the U.S. just like literally gives it away on their own goal line, possession after possession after possession, just like throwing it into the ground, dropping resets. It was ugly. And, credit to the Canadian defense for not just like giving up wide open holes, I guess, so that the U.S. had to throw a reset. But those were very preventable, dumb errors. And, something I expect the U.S. to clean up. But maybe if they give a team that at just the right moment or for an extended period of time, one of those teams, there's a couple teams we talked about that are a couple countries that are going to stick their mixed team. Was Italy, I think maybe was one of them. Maybe one of those teams could jump on the U.S., but I still think it's a pretty big long shot. The U.S. just had a really bad run of play and Canada was there to kind of capitalize on that. But I think for when the U.S. wasn't just literally giving the disc away in front of their own goal line, they were clearly the stronger unit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the defense from the team is going to be tough to beat. I think the way a team can beat the U.S. is to have a sturdy O-line that can handle the pressure, work the unders, and have like a 75% hold rate. And then if their D-line is going to get chances. They're going to get chances. So it's not like it's an impossibility. It's just like a lot of teams are going to be intimidated to play the U.S., and you're sort of starting at a disadvantage just from that. And if you can't handle the pressure that the U.S. mixed team is going to bring, you're just going to get crushed. So I have a hard time. I mean, Canada gave up a ton of breaks. They just did not have the answers on offense. If a team can bring the answers, maybe one of these stacked European teams can bring those answers, there's a chance.
I do wonder what it says about Canada and their ability to compete in the division, but it's obviously a good result to be able to take the half on the U.S. But you know, they're on the precipice. I think there are people ready to fully sell on Canada as a world ultimate power, and maybe they're getting ahead of themselves, and this mixed team is going to be part of trying to prove them wrong.
All right, let's go to a little semi-pro small ball. DC beats Boston in the UFA 12-11. Kind of a grindy, low-scoring game in cool temperatures in the nation's capital. A nice early win for the Breeze at home. Kind of a necessary game that you really want to win. This is the kind of game that kind of sets you up to get home field advantage in the first round of the playoffs. And hey, maybe even the second round, depending on how things go with New York, who just took their first loss last week. Thoughts on this matchup, Keith?
A bit ugly. Not the most aesthetically pleasing game with the combined 33 turnovers with only 16 blocks to help generate those turnovers. I think I expected a little bit more from these two teams, but you know, credit to Boston for being able to run right with DC. I guess that's your big takeaway if you're Boston. Like, hey, we can compete with these top teams in the East. That's what they have to believe moving forward. But you know, not exactly a sterling debut for this matchup, which I think was really being billed as a top flight competition.
Boston went on to crush Philly the next day. Oakland goes 2-0 on their road trip to Portland and Seattle, especially the back-to-back win at Seattle, an impressive one for Oakland as they kind of position themselves well for trying to grab one of those playoff spots in a very competitive West.
I love it. I'm all aboard for Oakland, and they have me a little worried, and maybe I'm not quite unworried given the fact that they narrowly beat Portland on the front end of that back to back. But you're going into Seattle and getting a win on a team that's been surging while on the road on the back end of a back to back. That's an impressive result for Oakland. So I'm still feeling good about them. You know, Jake Thorne out there getting buckets. So I'm believing that Oakland can really make their move in the West.
Minnesota beats Chicago. The Flyers get another win over the Hustle. So a little bit of a double letdown spot for the Hustle as they lose their opener to the Carolina. Then they get this huge win against New York, and you're like, okay, they got some momentum, and then boom, they go to Raleigh and they lose again 22-19. I mean, I'm starting to think, how good is this Flyers team? Like, are they for real? Is this like back to being a true championship contender after kind of a weak 2023 season? I mean, Anders Youngst was a beast this week.
Oh, he has been awesome this year. So you can check our if you're a subscriber, you can check out our Edge piece to hear a little more about Youngston, and he's doing a lot more with his throws than he has in years past, picking up a lot more throwing yardage along the way. You know, but I know both sides were missing some players, so this is not a just Atlanta was missing people thing, but I just don't know how representative this matchup is. You know, no Brett Holzmeyer, no Justin Burnett. So you know, like I don't know exactly what I would even take from this matchup Obviously, the result still stands, though. Good in the standings for Carolina. But I think that the South itself is still kind of up for grabs. I'm not going to put too much stock into this result.
Out west in the Western Ultimate League, Utah goes on the road and beats Seattle 22-20. And the Bay Area destroys the Arizona Sidewinders 18-7 at home. Ultimately, that gets Utah into a solid spot in the Northwest Conference. And Seattle is done for the year at 2-4. And does that mean Utah has clinched? They got another game coming up against Colorado.
I think.
But have they?
I didn't.
They already own the head-to-head against Seattle,
right?
So no. Seattle beat Utah 10-7. So maybe it comes down to point diff. I actually don't know what the tiebreakers are.
Yeah, this last game is going to be big. Arizona eliminated. So on the other side, you already know that San Diego and the Bay are going to championship weekend. But there's unfinished business in the other division, and it really is going to come down to that Colorado and Utah game.
Utah is a -4 in point diff. Seattle is a -9. So I believe Utah's in a pretty good spot, but I would have to actually look up what the tiebreaker rules are. But Utah in the driver's seat right now. Of course, with a win at home against Colorado, they would lock up a playoff spot. So how about Seattle? I mean, what a disappointing year, regardless of what happens. I still had this team as being one of the best in the league, and they haven't even been close.
No, they have struggled, and we knew with so much roster turnover that there was a chance that they would have a bit of drop off. But this has been a bit disappointing. They are still hoping to make the postseason, but this is not where you expected the preeminent franchise in the league. This is not where you expected them to be, clinging to a chance for a postseason berth.
PUL was off this week, but some big matchups coming up this weekend. Philly Surge taking on the New York Gridlock in New York. The Minnesota Strike going down to Raleigh to play the Radiants. And you got Shadow and Rising as well. So some big matchups from top teams around the league. Looking forward to all of those this weekend. All right, I think it's time for the question of the week.
All right. This week's question of the week. This is kind of a double barrel related question, but with the official announcement of the retirement of Tom Crawford from the USA Ultimate CEO position, we got a couple questions about what to do next. So, Charlie, what are we looking for? How should USA Ultimate go about finding the next person to lead us into the next chapter of Ultimate in the US?
Man, this is a tough one. I think the obvious candidates would be people who have had director level experience at a large local disc org. So that's kind of the starting place for people that you would imagine would have the requisite experience to, lead an organization like USA Ultimate. I'm curious though, because there's so many people in Ultimate who have are very smart, who have advanced degrees, and maybe are leaders in business or nonprofits or otherwise have leadership positions in their work that we know nothing about off the top of our heads, right? So I do think it would be wise for USA Ultimate to try to find somebody who is essentially what I would call an internal candidate to the Ultimate universe. Now, that said, they still have to have the requisite skills and experience to lead an organization as large as USAU. And so that doesn't mean that you just hire someone who loves Ultimate Frisbee. They need to still be smart, talented, and excellent. But I don't think we want to just hire somebody from some other sports NGB and say, okay, we have this person who has all this experience but knows nothing about Ultimate. We kind of tried that with Tom Crawford, And while I think Tom Crawford has done some things well, I also think the sort of the primary reason he was brought in, which was Olympics, has proven to basically be a failure. And so what are we hoping for to hire somebody from externally that we can't find internally? Because it's not like we have some lack of really smart, skilled people who could lead this organization internal to the ultimate universe. Somebody who cares about ultimate Frisbee, who has played at various levels of the sport. So that's kind of where I would start from. And it feels to me like some of the criteria that they have listed, like that is something that they're looking for. They hired some big consulting firm to do things for them, which I don't really feel like they need that, but USAU loves to hire consultants. They just love to do it. Unfortunately, it doesn't often work out. Like they hired a big consultant to build their whole new website, and then they built a horrible website. And they're still trying to get out from under that horrible website. So that's frustrating, but I don't know. As long as the board makes a really clear-eyed decision on what it is that they're looking for here, I think that we're going to have it's going to feel like a new era, almost regardless of what they do.
Charlie, how many thumbs up would you need on this video for you to push to become the new CEO? Like, if we get 500 thumbs up on the video, could you want to become the new CEO? You want to start campaigning?
Should I throw my hat in the ring? Just bail on Ulti World? I don't know. Would I even get an interview, Keith? I probably wouldn't even get an interview.
I don't know. Gotta ask the consultants.
Yeah, I should.
No,
listen.
I'm with you that I'm not sure exactly how much I trust USA Ultimate to find the right candidate per se. So I don't necessarily mind that they're reaching out to external sources to help with that. I don't know. It's like their core competency. Plus, they got a lot going on. It can really disrupt your workflow to have to sit there and do all the sifting through the potential candidates and the recruiting and all that kind of stuff. But I also think that I agree with you that you probably need somebody from within the community. There are a lot of folks who've dedicated a lot of time and energy to thinking about how to make Ultimate better. I do think we should try to continue to include people who have expertise from outside of the Ultimate community in our decision-making process, because it's too easy for us to kind of all want to do the same things over and over again, plus ends with each other in Ultimate. So it's nobody wants to do anything that might go against their friends' opinions or whatever. It's your community. I appreciate getting some outside perspectives coming in and looking at it, but I don't think they should necessarily be steering the ship. I forgot. Oh my man, this is gonna make me sound stupid. I guess that's par for the course on the podcast. I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about making international monetary policy with regards to corporate tax rates. And the organization that did this, which I don't think it was the IMF, but whatever organization was doing this, I'm sure somebody smart out there knows. They had the member countries rotate the person who sets the agenda every year or two. So Brazil was running the group right now, and they set the agenda, but everything was voted upon. Maybe we just need to restructure, and the leaders of the major local discords just do that system. So for a year, whoever's running Minnesota becomes the person who sets the agenda for the USA Ultimate Leadership Group, and that group of local discords makes the decisions for what's going to happen internationally. I don't know. Maybe we can reimagine this whole thing, and it doesn't have to be so top down, and we can integrate those local discords more. But I know that big changes are not exactly what we do around here.
Yeah, but let's not try to govern by the local Discord consensus. That's going to be an absolute disaster. I mean, it's easy to everybody be on the same page when you're all across the country and you're sharing a Slack space. But when you actually have to make the hard decisions, of which, that's what a CEO gets paid to do, somebody's got to make the hard decisions, and you're not going to get consensus on that a lot of the time. That's the whole point. It's hard. So I don't know. You need somebody who can be a real leader, but also understands the needs of Ultimate where it is. And I think the organization has kind of professionalized a bunch, but I think we really lost our way over the last 5 to 10 years in terms of recognizing where growth comes from. And I would say it's been kind of a disaster for USAU of like sort of coming back from the pandemic in like, let's build up from the bottom up. That's finally changing. The new strategic plan, now the opportunity to hire new leadership. We have the chance to undo some of the disaster results of like the affiliate program not working at all for our biggest orgs, and kind of like having these wars between Dis Northwest and Minnesota Ultimate, like these mega local orgs that are doing an amazing job growing the sport with youth, which is what USAU wants. And then they're in a pissing match with USAU. It's so stupid. So that has to end. It will end. And I think whoever is going to be the next CEO needs to have a really clear vision of like, what do we do the next 10 years to rebuild from the losses of the pandemic and rebuild the trust amongst all of our local orgs that do the on the ground work. And I think that we have a real opportunity there. So
here, and continuing to build trust, not just with those local disc orgs, but with the membership base. I know that in the Twitter sphere where everybody's like aged, 18 to 25, it's like super popular to just hate on the people who are in power and have to make all the decisions. And I think it's a little silly sometimes, but I think it's clear that group of people doesn't necessarily see what benefits they get out of being a USAU outside of competition organization. And I think that we need to do a better job clarifying what that is, whether tournament level, getting your tournament sanctioned, or being a member, for example, of, now that I'm doing local Discord work myself, I see all the time coaches who are like, why should we do this? Like, why do my kids need to sign up for this? Why do we have to spend all this money? Like, what's in it for us? And I think USA Ultimate needs to do a better job clarifying what that is so that people can take advantage of what resources already exist, because either there's not enough resources or the ones that don't that exist are not getting into the hands of the people that could stand to benefit from them. And that situation, I think, needs to be rectified in addition to what value USA Ultimate brings to the local discourse as larger organizations.
All right. Before we go, I want to let you know tomorrow, ESPN Plus will be debuting the Tryouts episode covering Ultimate Frisbee and the U24 tryout process last year. Keith and I realize we don't know what time it will be available. Maybe it will be like midnight Eastern, but tomorrow, right? It's not like it's on television. So it's on the streaming platform, ESPN Plus. So it's an hour-long episode covering the U24 tryouts and a number of players at those tryouts. Keith and I were both interviewed as a part of this, so we'll see how we turn out. I'm not feeling super confident that we won't look dumb, but you know what? Hopefully the editors did a good job. But this has obviously been in the works for over a year. Excited for it to finally be on television. And Keith, I'm looking forward to watching it. We should have a watch party in the Discord.
Yeah, I definitely think we should. I've been watching the show leading up to this, and I found it quite enjoyable. They just, the last episode was people trying out for what was the guy's name, like Mark Morrison Dance Group, like a ballet dance company. That was compelling. They've done college cheerleading. They did like monster truck driving. So they're definitely in the kind of national sports space and doing so in a way that's like respectful and shows like is educational, like brings people into this world, but mostly is about the human component of going through this process and how much it means to these players to be successful. And this will be the first one that's a national team, so maybe there'll be some extra emphasis. Maybe that's why it's this may be the last episode. I think it's a 6-episode package. This may be the last one, or there's 8, but we're getting a prime slot, I think, and it could be because it's like this is a U.S. national team. You get to be a part of Team USA, and that's a big deal. So I'll be curious to see how it's all presented, because introducing the sport to people and capturing it in a way that is compelling, but also telling the stories of the players themselves is a tough task. But they've done a pretty good job so far with the other sports I've seen.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to checking it out. So we'll try to organize something in Discord, maybe for a watch party tomorrow evening sometime, Wednesday Eastern. All right. Give us a like. if you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, get the notifications for all of the upcoming streams that will be free on YouTube. And if you don't have a subscription already, it's time to get one. Join us in the Discord. Get ready for wall-to-wall coverage of the D3 and D1 college championships. For Keith Rayner, I'm Charlie Eisenhood, signing off. Next week, we'll wrap up D3 Nationals and get you ready for D1 Nationals over Memorial Day weekend.
Hashtag the game, baby.
I'm winning it this year. I'm also going to get perfect picks in the Beat Charlie Challenge.
Oh, no.